Diana. So there was a significant, let's say, deviation of the normal data. Same with on Christmas or New Year's Day. You also have usually a distribution that's not usual. And Roger Nelson said, so introduces the concept of an information field as a common background language for consciousness and quantum event triggered physical noise generators to influence each other. So what he says is, he describes the noise generator as a chaotic, unstable system ready to absorb information from its environment. And that's what's very important for us. It's something very, very small, and that are the quantum events in those noise generators that can absorb information from the outside, so you can influence them. As quantum events absorb information non-locally, the entropy of a noise generator can change as the reaction of information patterns from of distant origin. So that's also very important. So you don't need to sit in front of this noise generator to influence it, as we had with the quantum teleportation at the beginning. So those events, since they are based on those really, really tiny quantum events, can be changed also from a distance. Now we come to generalized information field entanglement. And this is the most important slide if you want to understand how information field analysis and information field, let's say, harmonization actually work. So what do we see here? We see the bioenergetic field system B. So that's basically could be a person, the bioenergetic field of a person. Then you see on the other side an entanglement with the noise generator. And that's our physical noise generator, which we use in our devices. And then you have, of course, entangled with the bioenergetic field and the noise generator, the individual information field here on the right side. So we have the individual information field. As a subset, we have our bioenergetic field, and both are entangled with our noise generator. And now the most important part is our databases and our information that we have in our device and in our apps. So now you make a classical information transfer. So you look at the database entries, or you look at database entries, or you look at frequencies, and then you see, okay, what is the relevance of those frequencies, of those database entries for this bioenergetic field and this individual information field. And that's the way we basically get the information that are the most relevant for the person and for the bioenergetic field. And that's how information field analysis and harmonization actually work. Now we go fast forward to the scientific basis for the application of microcurrent. So as you know, we have information field technology as the main thing that we're using to bring things together. But of course, we also use microcurrent and frequency applications. So very fundamental, as I already said in the beginning, is that we know and understand that we are using very, very small currents. So it's in the 100 to 1000 microampere, so 0.1 ampere, so really, really low. And this is actually also the magnitude our body works. So we are basically mirroring the body's internal currents. And that's basically the language that the body also understands. And the body functions and the cellular functions, they are using those currents on a daily basis every time. So we wouldn't be able to live or to move or to do anything without those currents going through our body all the time. So now we come to the application in humans. Of course, we are carrying those moving ions in our body and so on. All physical processes in a living organism, basically, particularly nerve and muscle functions, are based on those electrical currents. And the effectiveness of a microcurrent and the frequency, of course, depends on the exact mode of application. So we have resonance frequencies for mitochondria, for different cells, and so on. And that's very, very specific. And of course, we have such variables as pulse frequency, the shape of the wave that we are basically applying, or the frequency, and of course the electrode placement. So you can only have the effect where you place the electrodes if you want a microcurrent effect, of course. Then as a developer of microcurrent applications, you of course must possess a high level of knowledge, skill, and experience to actually know all those details and bring it in a program that actually has an effect. So let's dive into a little more trivial things, and that's what are their current wise. So we have direct current. As you know, it's an unidirectional flow of electrical charges. Then we have alternating current, and that's a periodical reverse of change of flow of direction. So it goes one way, then it goes the other way. And that's basically invented by Nikola Tesla. And it is measured in hertz, and that's where the frequency comes in. So it's a flow of ions which is not unidirectional, but basically changing all the time. And that's the frequency, the change frequency. Let's put it like that. And we also know that current basically flows through our body, and what are the frequencies that we have. So brain waves are 0.5 to 150 hertz, heartbeat 0.05 to 100 hertz, muscle activity 20 to 500 hertz, nerve sickness 1 to 1000 hertz. And that's also what our frequency programs, so one resonance step that I will explain later, is it uses basically the full spectrum from 1 to 1 kilohertz. And that's basically the frequency our body understands the best, because our body uses and emits them on a daily permanently. And of course, as I already said, we emit this low frequency electromagnetic fields all the time. So what do we have from a, let's say, frequency point of view in our applications, or usually what are out there? And that's galvanic current. It's low frequency current up to 1000 hertz, middle frequency up to 100,000 hertz, and then high frequency above 100,000 hertz. And what we use for Healy is 1 megahertz, and for Mach Healy we use 12.5 megahertz, so even higher. So now, very interesting, our basically whole body is an electrical network circuit connected through conductors. And it forms basically a pathway through our body that those electrical charges actually move. And yeah, this way we are actually able to understand how our cells, how our organs actually work. We use exactly those mechanisms. So now what can you do with microcurrent? So what physiological or biological effects do you actually have? So you can increase the cellular energy production. You can modulate ion channels, and that's a very, very important thing. You can change the cellular signaling, optimize the cell membrane potential, stimulate protein synthesis, and improve, of course, the blood circulation. And here we see the effects on the cell metabolism, the cell membrane potential, the ATP production, cell communication, and tissue regeneration, which basically goes along with those things. So what do you, I just picked one example not to make it so long, this presentation, and that's what basically do we have in regards to cell metabolism. So since we basically change the ion channels, so make them faster, make them more efficient, and create ATP, we can of course improve the nutrient transport into the cell, for example, or the removal of waste products out of the cell, or stimulate repair mechanisms because the cell functions better. And of course, this metabolic processes that produce ATP, so that we can stimulate the mitochondria basically to generate more ATP. And that actually is on the cell level what microcurrent can do. So now let's jump to the next chapter, and that's patented studies and certifications. So what are we actually using? So one thing is, of course, patents. So we have a patent from Healy, and that's basically on this noise generator, and is basically a noise generator that's based on infrared. So we have more or less a biofeedback system. So you put in our signal, in our case also our consciousness, to a noise generator, and then we decide, based on the algorithm that we use, which frequency to apply, for example. And that's the thing that we have patented for the Healy. The same ground principle is, of course, also embedded in the Healy, but this is another kind of noise source. And as Markus Schmieke basically released the first time waiver systems, he didn't think about patents. He just wanted to give basically the community those devices and give this technology to the world. And later we basically said, okay, now we have the time to actually do a patent for it. And the other patent that Healy uses and also Healy uses is the communication technology between the smartphone and the device. Because if you talk about microcurrent and magnetic field, you actually want to get exactly what you put in, so the intensity of the field especially. And this communication technology is in a way that you transfer something, the device looks, is it actually done? And then gives the feedback to the app, yes, it is done. And then you can change something again. And this is a very, very, very secure way to actually transfer data from the smartphone to the device, and a very secure way to also change your intensity of your field or of the microcurrent. So those are the two main patents we're using. And of course, we have a medical certification for Healy in more than 35 countries. So we have, of course, our wellness applications for holistic health, and then we have our medical certification. And this took a while to get all those certifications. But yeah, it also is nice to see that, yeah, this device is not only a wellness device or a device for holistic health, but the technology, the security, the electrical safety, the electromagnetic safety is on the level of a medical device, because it is sold also as a medical device. And we did also a clinical post-market clinical follow-up study on the efficiency of basically our device of the medical indications. And the medical indications are pain, mental illnesses like fibromyalgia and depression. I mean, fibromyalgia is pain. Then we have also anxiety and sleep. And of course, we have also migraine. And we basically did this study. It took 2 years, all in all. And it was 6 months of basically application for our participants. And as you see here, the graphs go up and up, usually is good. So they improved their indications. And this is the coherence D, which is the effect size. So how good was the effect of those medical indications that we had? And there you have, for depression, anxiety, you have a very large effect. And also people also ask, what are those small lines always in between the graphics? Our graphics department removed them. And I said, no, you can remove those lines. This is the standard deviation. And this basically tells you, is this significant, or is it just a bullshit graph that that is just there because the clinical research department said, yeah, we need results? No, this is the standard deviation, and if it's in this thing, so it doesn't go outside, this means that's it actually significant. And that's what we have for all our indications. So for migraine, fibromyalgia, skeletal pain, and chronic pain, so they are all significant, and they all have an effect size of at least medium, large, or very large. And that actually, and I always tell people, so what does that mean? Yeah, it actually means it works. So the medical certification that we have also reflects in this study as, okay, we can do it with our device, and it actually has the effect that we want it to have. And of course, we also did lots of other studies on the non-medical. So we have like 20 studies we did on holistic health applications. Here I just have one study, so to not elongate the session too long. And this was one of our first studies. And it was quite funny because we had an increase of 31% basically of the quality of life. And we had a decrease in the waiting group of almost 14%. And that was also when we said, okay, we cannot make a waiting group and tell them not to use Healy or our devices. No, the waiting group also needs to be able to use the Healy because we're basically hurting people. So our waiting groups are now you use your device as usual, but the study groups are always to a very certain protocol where we have a certain effect. And everyone knows if you use Healy or our devices in a certain protocol, in a certain way for a certain, let's say, goal or topic, then they have a much, much higher effect or much better effect. And now we also started to do double-blinded placebo-controlled studies, but that is of course quite difficult because if you have microcurrent passing through your body, you feel the microcurrent usually, or electrosensitive people always feel it. So you cannot say, okay, we do a placebo and you don't feel anything. They immediately know, yeah, I'm in the placebo group. And that's really hard because we search for people that don't feel anything when they have microcurrent application and then have result. And we performed one study and that was also successful, but we will redo the study because the participants were too low because we didn't find too many people that fulfill this criteria. Yeah, and all in all, you can say so the development is basically done by high qualified engineers because also the company that does the hardware development, they are certified as developers of medical products. So you actually have people that know what they're doing and they're doing it since 20 years and longer. And of course, physicians and testing personnel that we actually validate and also test and verify all the things we basically want out of the device, which is a challenge sometimes because the communication between okay what you want and what you then get and is always something you need to double check at least 100 times. And of course, we have all these years that we put in the development to make it market ready, and we keep, of course, on investing to make it better and develop the next generations. And that's quite a challenge because we now basically, or we collected through the years all the things that people said, okay, we want to have this implemented, and that's quite hefty. But we are pretty far. And of course, as I already said, we have the electrical safety, we have the electromagnetic safety. So all those things are inside on the highest level. And we just recently needed to fulfill the requirements for the new amended electrical safety. So we needed to do some retesting of some new things that were required. We also passed those. So it's always in the higher standard. And that's also what I really like about a medical certification because everyone acts on the higher standards, and that's what we actually need. And of course, the continued investment and expansion. I don't tell you how much we invest in research and development because it's our one of our owners always gets really mad. It's like it's so much money. I mean, come on. Back then, I did this with a few engineers, and it was very easy and very cheap. But the engineers told us afterwards, yeah, we saw the potential of this man and we gave him a very, very cheap price. So we made minus back then, but now we're making plus. That's why it's so expensive. Yeah, and now let's go really in a practical example because what to do with all those things? Now we have lots of information feed technology, we had microcurrent technology, we had all the engineering stuff. So what did we do for with all those things? And that's an example of a recent module we basically created, and that's the Heal Advisor Analyze Meridian module. So what is it actually about? So what we basically use in this module is we use the Meridian teachings that everyone knows it's 2000 years old and older. So we implemented this traditional Chinese knowledge because that's also one thing that Healy through Markus Schmieke does. We are not like, okay, we have one technology and we use it. No, Markus Schmieke basically has the unique ability to connect all kinds of different let's say, scientific expertise. So we get meridians in, we get aura in, we get microcurrent in, we get frequency technology in, we get magnetic field technology in, and so on, and combine these in actual applications that you can use, because that's also what he actually wants. He wants something that people can actually use, because all this research that you can do and no one ever benefits from it, it doesn't make any sense to him. So he tries to get all those things together and make it usable. And here, of course, we have the 12 meridians. And of course, they're mirrored on both sides of the body. So we have at the end 24. And of course, each of those meridians and each of the acupuncture points is connected to a specific organ, to a specific emotion, to a specific psychological thing. And that's what I always say as holistic systems. So, and closed systems. The meridian systems is a closed system. So you basically, in theory, could address every imbalance that you have in your body, in your organs, in your emotions, through the meridians, through those acupuncture points. And that's very important, because normally you would need to analyze everything in the world, all information, to get basically your problem. But if you have a closed system, you can actually address it through the philosophy or through the knowledge of this closed system. And that's what we're basically doing. We're looking at all the acupuncture points and, of course, find out the connections. So what do we do actually? So this is a very practical short workflow, and I just reduced it to the bare minimum. So first of all, we are analyzing what information or what meridian is the most incoherent. So if you look at the third basically screen, you see the bladder meridian, for example, is the most incoherent. So it's hyperactive. It could also be hypoactive, and incoherent is the middle. And there you basically see, okay, what is now important for this person? And as we learned in the very beginning, that's how information field analysis works. So you have an entanglement of the person with the focus. I want to have the energy basically, or the coherence of my meridians with the noise generator, and you basically tap into this individual information feed and get this information, and you display it. And in the next step of this module, you choose a focus text. So what do I want to actually solve? So you basically involve now your consciousness to the full extent to have basically the ability to get this information explicitly on your focus. And there you basically analyze all those meridians or the meridians you found, all the acupuncture points. And you choose 2 acupuncture points that actually are there, the most important ones. And then in the final step, you analyze in those acupuncture points in 5 different databases, emotional blockages and so on, which is the relevant information for the client. And the same principle applies for the aura module, for the resonance module. It's always the same principle. So you connect through your noise source, through the entanglement of your bioenergetic field, your information field, and get the things out of the information field that you need. And of course, then you send also the information field that you can vibrate this information field back into the information field, which means you're using this quantum teleportation to actually transfer information. And in the final step, we also analyze which meridian frequency program for the Healy is the most relevant, as you do it in the resonance analysis. For example, you analyze the resonance of those meridians of those programs and see which one is the one that actually I should use right now. And there, of course, I wanted to elaborate a little, because this is the last slide, a little on the programs. So how are those programs usually built up? So those programs, those frequency programs you apply through the wristbands, for example, are made up of 3 different modes. And one mode is the resonance mode, which means you choose a frequency bandwidth or range of 1 to 1 kilohertz, for example, and analyze every 10 seconds which frequency has now the highest resonance with you and apply it immediately. So you're basically tapping into the information field and getting this frequency. And then you have the resonance mode. The resonance mode is also a frequency bandwidth, for example, 1 to 1 kilohertz. But now you pick 3 frequencies And then you analyze the progress for those frequencies. So you basically narrow it down to 3 frequencies, and then you analyze, okay, from a progress from -100 to +100, how long do I actually need this frequency? And then you have the last and the most important step, and that's the selection mode. And in the selection mode, what do? You pick as a specialist for frequency programs. So the specialist that basically created those programs also picked certain frequencies for certain topics that fit to the topic of this, for example, stomach. So you pick stomach frequencies to make it very simple, or things that are related to the stomach. So you pick all those frequencies, put it in this selection step in this program. And what happens if this selection step is executed on the Healy device is, of those frequencies that are pre-selected, it can be 10 frequencies, can be 100, can be up to 400 different frequencies. If you then analyze, you analyze 3 frequencies again of those, let's say 50 frequencies that are now the most relevant for you. And then you apply those again with progress. So you analyze again, how long do you need those frequencies? And there can be, let's say, as much resonance, real time, or indication selection modes as much as you want. So you can also put 4 different selection modes if the person from the holistic advisory board says, okay, I want frequencies especially for the liver. I also want frequencies especially for mitochondria. I want frequencies especially for emotional disbalance. So he picks 3 times the selection mode, and you have 3 times 3 frequencies from those frequencies that he basically picked. And that's a very specific, but also at the same time very individual application of frequencies and microcurrent. And that's basically about it. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Martin. It's a very, I think, a very large information. I hope our audience feel it's like me. I learn a lot, and I think there will be a lot of questions. Okay, there's a questions I think to you or to know about more. Maybe some area you don't talk about. So I think you should write in the chat box is better because we don't want to open up the mic. If everyone have a chance to open the mic, they would maybe ask too many questions. So I will ask the audience here to write down your questions in the chat box, and we will read the question, and we may ask Martin to give us the best answer for that. Okay, is this good, Martin?
It's fine for me.
Okay, good. Okay, so it's the question here.
Uh,
Uh, which comes first, implicate order or explicate order?
Basically, both are existing at the same time always, because the moment, I mean, you could say what happens if we first have consciousness. So in the belly of our mother, basically, there's a moment where we are conscious or have unconsciousness or basically come to life. And even then, you always have the thing that you as a person recognize. So you see things, you feel things, you experience things, and always have the implicate order. And the implicate order is basically your unconsciousness. So you are, and that's that. It's a very good question actually, because one very important fact that you should or everyone experiences, at least I experience it with my daughter. If you have a newborn, this newborn is actually connected to this information field. They are working or they are functioning differently than we do. We have our consciousness and we basically try to understand everything. We block our unconsciousness and we are not connected anymore to nature, to other things, to unconsciousness, to the collective unconsciousness. But they are really basically into the direct connection with the information field, and they can access this information consciously, more or less, but they are not really conscious, because this conscious, what we basically tell ourselves as consciousness, is that we can see it, we can understand it. But as everyone knows, if we consciously are perceiving something, our brain and our eyes are the biggest filter ever. So we only perceive a few percentage of what we see, we actually recognize and understand in our conscious mind. All the other things are filtered out or basically are in the unconsciousness. And this holo movement that I described is basically always with the consciousness and unconsciousness. So this basically moves all the time and reflects on each other. So one, let's say, simple example would be if you sleep and you dream something, and the day before you had a problem. You said, okay, how do I do this? I need to be there at this time and I need to present X, Y, Z. How do I do that? And then you wake up in the morning and you say, okay, now I know how to do it. So your unconscious mind basically worked on those things and you basically took this information or transferred this information to your consciousness. So from the implicate order to the explicit order. I hope
Okay,
this.
so I think we answered the question. So the next one is actually efficiency between straps and coil at Pink app. How efficiency and how to explain which one is better is should I use straps or should I use coil?
That's a
Yes.
very good question. So basically, you saw the part where I explained about the microcurrent, and the microcurrent is something that, of course, you need to use wristbands or adhesive electrodes to get this microcurrent effect. And this microcurrent effect is really on a cell basis. So you have cells that current passes through, and for example, your ion channels function faster or more ATP is created or things like that. And of course, you bring a certain frequency that is modulated on this microcurrent in those cells. If you talk about the Healy coil, that's a quantum potential. So what is done there is two magnetic fields that are opposing each other, and they are basically canceling out. So you're basically getting rid of the magnetic field, and what is left is just the vector potential, so an information. So you have a physically created frequency information that you basically impart into your bioenergetic field. So what you are doing basically is you are informing your bioenergetic field with a certain frequency or certain frequencies, because it's usually more. And those frequencies basically are modulating your bioenergetic field and more or less tuning your bioenergetic field to get it in a coherent state again. So it's basically the same thing that you do on a cell level with a frequency, but now you're using it just as an information in the bioenergetic field. So that's the main difference.
Okay, thank you. And there's a same from the same audience. How long does it take the body to observe and process the energy when you're using Healy on the Pink app?
That's a very difficult question because at the end it's very individual. So you cannot say, okay, it's 1 hour, it's 1 day, because it's also very important to understand. If you apply frequency applications through wristbands or also through the coil, you always need to see who you are applying it to. Is it someone young and healthy, or is it someone old and diseased, basically? So if you have someone young and healthy, this body is able to process the information which is imparted through the frequencies much faster than an old diseased body. So there you have a longer time period that the body needs to absorb the information. I mean, absorbing is maybe fast, but to basically get the effect out of the info of the frequencies. So every frequency has an effect, and the body needs to be able to do all the need for what is needed to execute on this effect. And that, of course, is very individual how fast it is basically done. And of course, it's also very individual how what frequencies you use and what the frequencies actually do in the body. So some things are, let's say, done easily. Some things need longer time. And we also, as we have with the information field, we give a certain push in the right direction to basically stimulate self-healing processes, because that's also a universal law that everyone needs to understand. It's not the device that heals you. It's not the therapist that heals you. It's always your self-healing that heals you. So you heal yourself. The therapist and the devices and everything just push you in the right direction, give you the right key to actually understand what to do next, to basically tell your body what to do next, to give a signal to your body what to do next. So it can be very quick. Some people have immediate effects, but some people have effects after 10 days. We did once a very nice survey, and we basically had that after 5 days, more than half of the people had an effect. After 7 days, already three-fourths of the people had an effect. So, and after 10 days, more than 80-90% of the people actually had an effect of the frequency application.
Okay, thanks a lot. And there's a question here. Is individual information field same meaning as karma energy field in Buddhism? So maybe they have another name. So we call it individual, we call information field. Maybe another religion called different, but I think it's the same, right?
I mean, I
Or
would say karma energy field is a part of the information field, but
yeah.
I think it reflects very good to individual information field. But karma is, I think, a little narrower because the individual information field carries all the information of the individual and not only, yeah, but it's very similar, I would say. Maybe it's a sub let's say a smaller part of the individual information field, but I think it's very close.
Okay, thank you. And there's from audience, thank you for sharing such valuable inside information about bioenergy field. I understand that the device is medically approved in several Asian countries like India, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. Could you please, or can you provide also the same in Thailand? It's if it's approved here, it can actually do more thing and also do a better sell.
Yeah, that's a decision that we made that the medical certification we do not expand in Asia or do not use in Asia because it is very, let's say, difficult to have one country with a medical device and the other country with a non-medical device, and then it's very hard for the sales force. But rest assured, the programs that we have, of course, contain all kinds of frequencies. So you have the positive effects, of course, also with normal programs that we have inside. But as you said, for skin effects, that's something that we want to elaborate on, but not in the near future, more in the middle future, because there are lots of applications for skin firmness and so on, basically also with direct current, and we are actually working on applicators like that. But that's really a future thing. We shouldn't dive into it because then I get always said I shouldn't tell too much about future products.
Right. Keep secret with us. Okay, good. Okay, then we have from Nicola. Nicola, sorry. In the studies, it says incentive coil. What does that mean? She
Yeah,
asked here.
basically what we did with as we have participants, we usually always give the participants something as a reward for the time they use to do the study because they need some time to fill out things, to apply the programs and so on. We also had a study as the PMCF study. We also offered a Healy watch back then to the participants. And that was also basically approved by the ethics committee because there we had an ethics committee and they said it's not a payment, it's just basically something you get for your time, the time you use to
Okay,
participate in the study.
wonderful. Okay, a follow-on question. Do I understand that in the Pink app, when you turn it up, you are turning up the amp? What range does it run from? The hertz, I guess, is in the pool of the program that the device scans on what is imbalanced.
Exactly.
So she
So
mean maybe
yeah,
the
yeah,
three
yeah.
different stages with the different Hertz. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically that's true. So in every program there's defined which frequencies are inside and so on. So that is correct. And the other thing is basically we have the high current and low current mode in the device. You under settings you can change this. And for the high current mode, it's from 0 to 10 volt in a maximum. And as a maximum, it's 4 milliampere that the device can output. It's also on the back of the device, actually. It's written on the instructions for use. And from a low current mode, we usually use something around 200 milliampere in a max. And if you basically increase the intensity, you get always up to 5%, and you're always increasing to a maximum of 200 milliampere. But there are also programs with 1 milliampere, no, no, 200 microampere. Let's not confuse this. 200 microampere and 1,000 microampere. And we have programs with 500 and 600 and 400 microampere also. So, and if you basically, let's say, make a very simple example, let's say we have 100 microampere, then if you have the 15% you start, you have 50 microampere. If you increase by 5%, you have 20 microampere, and so on until you have 100. So that's actually how it works.
Okay. Then we have, I think there's a question, can newborn or baby use Healy or make Healy? What do you think?
Yeah, actually, the reason why we basically have in the instructions for use that it's not for, or it's only for adults only, is that there is not enough data on that. So basically, there are lots of studies done. I also recently saw a double-blinded, placebo-controlled study with children, but it's too less data. So we don't have enough data for children, so we don't advertise it. Of course, if you are a parent and you know what you're doing and you are using the device consciously, you can do whatever you want with your children and use it there. But we as a company are not basically allowed to do that because there's not enough data.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay. He said, if I do 3 glasses of Makili water, energized water, and put in one glass and drink, is this okay or is this too much?
That's an interesting question because at the end of the day, what do you do with when you inform water with a magnetic field? So you basically try to recluster or rearrange the water molecules and the information in the water and the hydrogen bonds in a way that it reflects what information you put on them. And since you have like I don't know, sun energy or warmth energy and so on, those water clusters on those hydrogen bonds are constantly changed. So the longer you leave it there, the more change you have, basically differing from the original information you put in. When you three different basically informations and combine it, of course, a similar thing happens. So you have one information there, another information there. Now you combine it. Now you combine this information. So it might work perfectly, but I think the only person that can tell you how good it worked is yourself. You need to test it because no one in a sane mind could actually reproduce what you did.
Okay. And yes, also the maybe the following question, using the Blue app, resonance, how long does it take to take effect or feel the body?
That's actually a very good question because there the range is the same as for frequencies. So it can have an immediate effect. It can have also an effect only on a long term, so over 2 or 3 weeks. It depends usually on the thing you're addressing. If you have an acute thing, so something happened, so you have an emotional disbalance or imbalance, and you need to get to the bottom of this. And usually you can do an information feed analysis. So that's what I do when I'm in a desperate state. I usually do an aura analysis and see, okay, what information comes up, and I see, okay, yeah, okay, I need to work on this, I need to work on this, I need to work on this. Okay, then I can solve my problem. So that's basically how I also use our technology. And of course, you can send it in the information field, what I also always do, and basically re-inform your information field with positive information. When you have something chronic, so it's something, for example, as we all know, we have traumata through our life and usually in the childhood because there we couldn't help ourselves. So if you have a father that basically scolds you all the time for doing something wrong, as a child, you have no possibility to get somewhere else. You cannot counter fight because you're too weak and you're dependent 100% on your parents. I mean, my wife just recently, I mean, we have our daughter, and as you know, children always reflect basically, they're the perfect mirror for ourselves to see our own faults. And she basically was really out of balance. She's usually a very nice person, but there she was really out of balance. And she told me, yeah, afterwards, then, yeah, I reflected on this. And actually, when I was a child, my mother, and really a child, so a baby, most likely, my mother screamed at me. She really screamed at me, and I couldn't help it. I couldn't do anything. And it's really, and as you know, those when you are children or when you have younger people or really babies, they have not this wall they can basically put in front of them. So it basically goes very deep to the core of their soul, and it hurts. It really hurts. And if you have such an traumata, of course, just doing an information feed analyzing and doing 2 times vibration won't solve this. It's impossible. You really need to give this a little longer time and most likely also go there from different angles and on different levels, work on the energetic level, work on the information feed level, work on the psychological level, emotional level to actually get those traumas in a new or solved or dissolved because that actually takes some effort. So it always depends what you are addressing, and then you can see how long do you actually need an information field harmonization or maybe also several analyses and several harmonizations to get things going.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. I think there's one or two questions left. Okay. So I will read it. A global information field is similar to collective karma of people of the whole world. Is it? Yes
Basically,
or
it
no?
is. Yeah. I think that's also the same as we had before. It's the collective unconsciousness, collective karma. Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. Okay. Then the last questions, then I will hand over to Dr. GD. There's a question about the potency DCLM. Does the frequency work faster on certain levels if you see DCLM? Do you know
The
how to?
frequency fast, I mean, you mean in the information field analysis? I mean, in the information field analysis, there you have those potencies, and those potencies usually tell you on which level this, let's say, uh, information should be interpreted. Because if you have a D potency, it's usually something very tangible. It's physical, so you see it, you know it. It's in the yeah, let's say in the next nearer world. Let's put it like that. And if you have something LM, it's like or maybe it's your ancestors. It's even a longer timeline that this problem goes back. And you need to work on this level basically to address it. It's not something that you can solve for yourself in your own small world. It's something you really need to go back and go to a little further in the past, for example.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Last question coming up. Okay. Then we'll, okay. The question is, it is safe to use the technology of the individual microcurrent who are at the actually high risk for essential or irregular heartbeats. Here's the concern because they often exhibit irregular brain and heart waves and tend to be sensitive to neural input.
Yeah, so in the instructions for use, you will find that for microcurrent application, it's a contraindication. So if you have like epilepsy or something like that, don't do it. It's a risk. Actually, there are also applications for epilepsy with microcurrent, so it's not so trivial because it's not trivial. It shouldn't be done by laymen, so only by specialists. For information field analysis and harmonization, it's something different. Of course, you always, and that's very, very, let's say, important to know for every therapist and of course, every therapist knows it. You always need to be in close connection with your patient or your client. So test something and try to get feedback. Give something else, try to get feedback. But for information field analysis and harmonization, we didn't have any negative feedback on epilepsy or other things. It's just always be cautious with the dosage. So if you do lots of harmonization for a longer time, this can be, of course, also be overwhelming. So always keep close or stay close to the client.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's one very interesting question here. Do ongoing innovative frequency to help reduce radioactive radioactive in food after nuclear war? Okay.
I
Do
mean,
we have
that's,
anything that can help to reduce this radiation or
I mean,
radiation?
Radiation in food, of course, is a tricky thing. So what we usually do is we enable the body to deal better with such things. So we strengthen the body because, as I said, the only thing that actually can heal you is yourself. And the better you address this healing mechanisms in the body, the better you are basically safe for everything. If it's radiation from I don't know, your WLAN connection or from Bluetooth or whatever, it's always how you strengthen the body. And that's, I think, is the only way to address it because the other thing, I'm a physicist. I was physicist in the radiotherapy, so radiation is nothing to basically make some fun with. So keep away from radiation as far as possible, since it's always reducing with the distance quite rapidly. So if you stay away, it's no problem. But if you ingest it, radiation, that's of course the least thing that you should do. But that's a quote from my former doctor that was the head in the radiotherapy. He said, humans are much more resistant to radiation than rats. So our body, our system is very, very, very powerful. We just need to relearn to use it.
Wow, that's good. Thank you, Martin. Okay, so we allowed Dr. Jetty to come up to speak up because he has some questions. Actually, he wants talk to you direct. So we please Dr. Jetty to come up and to open up the mic. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for this wonderful session and also your answer, your time. Okay, so Dr. Jetty, uh, please unmute yourself. Let me check if I can do that. Okay. And yes, you can. You have the stage, Dr. JD.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ching. But I already understand the talk of Martin. So that's I'm so happy to your answers. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, then let's go back to our MD of Thailand. Thanks a lot. Thanks for organizing this wonderful session. Thank you.
You're still muted.
Okay, let me open up. Yes.
So thank you so much. Thank you, Kun Martin, and thank you, Dr. Chen, especially Dr. Chen, for helping moderating today's seminar. And for you, Kun Martin, for sharing such valuable insights into this, I would say, fascinating world of frequency and microcurrent technology. It's still new for many of us, but this is the great start and the great beginning of a new knowledge for many of us. I also like to thank for all of you, our participants, for joining us today. I can see that you are really intrigued about this topic because all of us still stay until the end of the session. Bravo, thank you so much. And also for your engaging questions during this Q&A session. So I really hope that today's presentation by Kun Martin has given us a deeper understanding of how the frequency and also the microcurrent can help support our well-being. and also our soul. And last but not least, this is really the exciting time for the wellness technology. And we are really thrilled that Healy will be on this journey and will be dedicated and also building such a knowledgeable community for the near future. All right, so as we move forward, I really encourage all of you to stay connected with us and continue exploring many beautiful things that will be happening in the future. Martin has shared some lights already, what's going to be happening. He didn't say it all, but he knows that we have so many great programs and a great discovery in the pipeline. And that will help enhance our personal and professional lives as well. So thank you again for your participation. And we look forward to seeing you at future events. If you would like this event, please type 1 so that we will make sure that we will continue to have such an engaging participation in the near future. And Martin, I will see you in 2 weeks' time. There will be almost 20 Thai leaders who will come and visit you in Berlin. So for now, have a wonderful evening and take care. Thank you. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you. See
Thank
you
you,
soon.
everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.